What's going on, everybody? It's AG here. We had another solid week of college football. So today I'm ranking my college football Week 8 Top 25 rankings. So without further ado, let's get started. Before we get completely started here today though, do me a favor and hit that big old red subscribe button down below. That way when I post more content like this, you'll be the first one to know about it. Starting us off here, we've got my first four out. These are in no particular order. My first team is Liberty. Their only loss is a 1-point loss to Wake Forest. Wake Forest has looked pretty good this year, so that's not a bad loss. Maryland's close. Their only losses are a top 25 team, so they're right on the cusp. Florida State, they're basically falling victim for playing the tough part of their schedule already. They played Wake Forest, Clemson, and NC State and lost all of them. Played pretty competitively in all of them, so Florida State will be ranked by the end of the year. Florida, they have some losses, but all of their losses are two good teams, and also they have beaten Utah. So coming in at number 25 for me, a team on not a lot of people's radar is South Alabama. Their only loss is a 1-point loss to UCLA. As you know, UCLA, top 10 team, undefeated team, leader in the Pac-12 right now, so that's a good loss. Number 24, I've got Illinois. Then with number 21 will be playing before the end of the year to battle to see who makes it to the Big Ten Championship. Illinois, they haven't really beaten anybody, so that's why I have them so low. They only have one loss, but that loss is to Indiana, so that's why I'm kind of iffy on them. But they beat Minnesota this week, and that's a good win. 23, Kansas State. Similar to Illinois, they only have one loss, but their loss is to Tulane, so I'm a little skeptical on that one. Kansas State, their win over Oklahoma looks weaker and weaker each week, so that's why I have them at 23. 22, I've got NC State. They're coming off a loss to Syracuse, but their only losses are the two undefeated ACC teams, Clemson and Syracuse, so I can't really knock them for that one. 21, I've got Purdue. Their only two losses are to Michigan and Penn State. Those are two pretty good losses, so keep your eye out on Purdue. At number 20, I've got Mississippi State. Their only losses are to Kentucky and LSU, which aren't bad losses at all. Mike Leach's team, always competitive. They've looked good so far this year. Rodgers has looked good. They barely lost to Kentucky this weekend. They're competitive. They can play with anybody. At number 20, Mississippi State. At number 19, I've got LSU. If they didn't get that extra point blocked against Florida State at the end of the game, they probably only got one loss so far, and that would be to Tennessee. Number 18, Texas. They had a scare this week against Iowa State. They barely scraped out. They play Oklahoma State this week. Should be a good one. At number 17, I've got Penn State. They finally played somebody this week, and they were not very competitive. Michigan handled them this week. I'll be curious to see how they can respond to that one. At number 16, I've got Kentucky. The Wildcats are coming off a win over Mississippi State. They lost last week, if you remember, to South Carolina without Will Levis. Will Levis went out in this game as well. They would have beat South Carolina with him, and they almost beat Ole Miss anyway. At number 15, I've got Oregon. They were on a bye this week. They've got UCLA this week, in which should be a pretty competitive game. Oregon, they've only got one loss, but that loss, if you can remember, they got destroyed in week 1 against Georgia. So I'm a little skeptical on Oregon. This week against UCLA should show if they've really improved or not, but with Bo Nix, you never really know. Number 14, I've got Syracuse. The Orangemen are still undefeated. They're coming off a win over NC State. NC State didn't have their quarterback, so it might not be as big a win, but hey, they're undefeated. They're playing Clemson this week. Top 25, undefeated ACC teams. This could be a good one. At number 13, I've got USC. Hey, it's a long year. They're still in their driver's seat. They still control their own destiny, in my opinion. If they can win out, I think they'll be okay. They can play, but they just lost that game to Utah. Utah is good, so it's not a bad loss, but they haven't really beaten anybody when you look at the rest of their schedule. So that's why at number 13, I've got USC. At number 12, the team that just handed USC their first loss, I've got Utah. The Utes have looked good this year. Their only losses are away games at UCLA and at Florida. Both games they could have won. They lost right at the end. And they were, like I said, they're away games. So if they're on a neutral field, there's probably only maybe 5 teams that I would take over Utah if it's a neutral field game. Utah can play. At number 11, I've got Oklahoma State. They're coming off a loss against TCU in overtime. They blew this game. They had this game in the bag. They were handling TCU. Oklahoma State almost had it. Oklahoma State just dropped that game to TCU, though, so that's going to hurt them. That's why they dropped down to number 11. They play Texas this week in what should be a good game. All right, so we made it to the top 10. At number 10, I've got Wake Forest. Their only loss is in overtime to Clemson. The Demon Deacons have looked good so far this year. They can score with almost anybody in the nation, I think. Wake Forest, the team to keep your eye on. At number 9, I've got Ole Miss. They kind of struggled against Auburn today. It was a bit of a struggle, so I'm a little worried about them. They have beaten Kentucky, so that's a big win to me, but they barely won that game. Could have gone either way. But they keep winning. Ole Miss at number 9. At number 8, coming off the bye, we've got UCLA. They're still undefeated. If you remember last week, they beat Utah, which just beat USC. So UCLA can play. They play Oregon this week. We'll see how that game goes. At number 7, I've got TCU. The Horned Frogs, I talked about them a minute ago. They came crawling back against Oklahoma State, winning in overtime. TCU, the top-ranked Big 12 team right now, they're rolling. At number 6, coming off that close loss to Tennessee, dropping out of my top 5 is Alabama. They didn't drop too far because they were competitive with Tennessee, and Tennessee can play. Alabama, they do control their own destiny. If they win out, if they win the SEC championship, if they don't lose another game, they'll still be able to make the playoff. Alright, so we made it to my top 5. At number 5, I've got Michigan. I was tempted to move Michigan up after that Penn State win, but I'll tell you why I didn't in a moment. Michigan looked good in that Penn State win. They looked pretty dominant. They handled Penn State. The game was never really in doubt. I don't know if they're playoff caliber again this year. We're going to have to wait and see, but Michigan, they look good today. I got them at number 5. So number 4, I've got Clemson. The reason Michigan didn't jump Clemson for me is because Clemson has already played the tough part of their schedule. They've beaten 3 ranked teams, beaten NC State, Wake Forest, and Florida State. And they play Syracuse this week, which is undefeated. If they can win that one, they might even move up more for me. They are barely scraping by, but they've already played the tough part of their schedule, where other teams haven't really played that tough part yet. So number 4, I've got Clemson. They've got 3 top 25 wins already. Clemson's going to be there in the playoff. We'll see how they do once they get there. At number 3, making the big jump after that win over Alabama, I've got Tennessee. They shocked me last week. Since they only beat Pitt in overtime, I was a little worried about Tennessee. I thought they'd lose to LSU last week, but they handled LSU. They destroyed them. And today, they came out striking, man. That offense is furious. It's going to take a good defense to stop Tennessee. Alabama had no answer for Tennessee for a lot of the game today. Tennessee's offense, they can play with anybody. I'm ready to see them versus Georgia. At number 2, dropping down from number 1, I've got Ohio State. They had a bye this week. They haven't really played anybody yet, so really them and Georgia could kind of flip back and forth to me. Ohio State's looked dominant. They've handled everybody they've played so far. They can only play their schedule. That preseason game against Notre Dame would have been a big game, but Notre Dame isn't really that good this year, apparently. Ohio State, though, they've looked good in every game. Them and Michigan's going to be a nice game. All right, so moving up to number 1 for me, I've got Georgia. They had another dominant win this week over Vanderbilt. Georgia, however, if they keep letting these bad teams hang around with them, not this week, but talking about previously, like Missouri, for example, if they keep letting these bad teams hang around with them, they're going to lose one eventually. So they got to start beating everybody like they did today against Vanderbilt. Then when Tennessee look up there on the collision course, I can't wait to see that game. The winner's going to get Alabama in the championship. I can't wait to see it. So that's my top 25 for the week. Let me know any teams that you would add to my top 25 in the comment section down below. As always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. That way when I post more content like this, you'll be the first one to know about it. So until next time, AG, out.